Everything happens for a reason.
Hello, I'm Soycat and welcome back. It's not a third channel thing that I don't really know what it is, because today I wanted to talk about a TV show I really like, which is Black Mirror. So if you've never watched Black Mirror, I really recommend you watch at least the one episode I'm going to be talking about today. It's called Hang the DJ. It's in the 4th season. You can watch it on Netflix right now, and I totally recommend you do that, because otherwise this is probably not going to make too much sense, but also I'm probably going to spoil it. This is your last warning. It's free on Netflix. It's probably free without Netflix if you're inclined as to pirate things on the internet, but I just want to talk about this episode a little bit because I want to do something a bit different. Not like, movie or episode analysis or anything, but just kind of discussion of the points underneath it. The thing I love about Black Mirror is it is a sci-fi exploration of so many different concepts, and Hang the DJ is one of my favorite underrated episodes, and I wanted to talk about some of the things in why. I watched it again today recently for the second time, and I enjoyed my second watch through just as much as my first. That's one of the things that makes Black Mirror great, but also I think the reason I like episodes like Hang the DJ and San Junipero and stuff like this is because they explore the concept of love in sci-fi, and that sounds like a silly thing to like, and I wouldn't guess about myself even that I would like the concept of it, but especially in Black Mirror they do a really good job at exploring it. I think one of the most fundamental human problems is that we really love expressing love. Love is like one of the all-consuming emotions, but we're not necessarily so great at expressing it. Even the best metaphor you can make is like, I love you so much that I do this, I love you so much I do this. The biggest one you can make in real life is, I love you so much I'm gonna commit to spend my entire life with you. And although that's pretty darn grand, the fact that, marriage as the biggest expression doesn't really work, because most of them end in divorce. I think it's 1 and 2 at this point, but like, it kind of shows that like, oh yeah, even the grandest gesture is kind of flawed on the surface. So seeing actual grand gestures, seeing the concept of like, what if you could go bigger than your whole life? What if you could spend infinite different lives? So, like, I feel like there's an interesting thing to explore there, which is why I wanted to talk about Hang the DJ. So here is me talking about some of the things I found interesting. So first of all, again, this is spoilers. If you haven't watched it, you really should watch the episode, but the episode works perfectly even without the twist, in my opinion. Even if you remove the twist, there's still a lot of really interesting, points within the grand point of like, oh yeah, what if there was a machine that matched us all up with each other? What if the machine could work out from what our failures and successes? What exactly is going on? I really love it because, it raises the question of like, why do you need a machine? That is, it's basically something we all kind of do anyway, right? We all slowly learn from every relationship. Something I remember I heard a while ago is like, every girlfriend you get, every boyfriend you get is going to be better than the last one, right? Because you're never going to either make the same mistake twice, but also you're going to learn from mistakes you didn't even know were possible. And the episode kind of touches on that theme in a really interesting way with like, what if technology did it for you? What if you didn't have a choice in your relationships? Which is a little bit, bleak at the start, which is why I like that it kind of gets nicer later. But yeah, one of the things that comes up early, just after the guy gets the girlfriend that he really, really doesn't like, is they see one of the couples who have ended up in the perfect relationship, the one relationship, the final relationship, the perfect match, or whatever you want to call it. So this perfect match is an interesting, discussion point by itself, just because of the fact that, like, yeah, and, in real life, that's what most people believe, or a lot of people believe, in the concept of the one or whatever, and this system creates the one, and I love because they could have just showed them as being, like, two perfect supermodel level people, like, look how happy we are, we've ended up happy together forever, even though it's, like, our first day, but I think it's way more interesting that they showed two people who are, pretty average, two people who are also really, really strange. The guy starts barking, but the girl loves that he's barking. She's not just putting up with it, as you'd see in most couples, but she's like loving his like enthusiasm to playing along with her bit. And I love that they're super strange people, because I think that is something, at least personally to me, maybe I've got weird views on this, but I love that it kind of raises the point that like, yeah, actually the perfect relationship isn't just one where you're so perfect that you don't have any flaws over each other and you both only realize that about each other, but it's one where your flaws become each other's like upsides. Like if that guy was barking even when I said something, I'd be like, man, this guy who just insists on barking. Fun fact, people who bark on the internet, very strange, but the fact that this girl loves like his like enthusiasm in that way, and the fact that this guy, you can see from the way they interact that like, oh, there actually is a perfect match. But there, that it's interesting for the context of the show, but it's also a really interesting thing to see to me, because it makes a point that I think everyone should know, that like, yeah, the perfect relationship is not one where you you both believe you're perfect, but one where each other's flaws can become benefits. The cool thing about synergy is that it totally does work that way, right? You can add 1 and 1 and get 2.5 in human terms, because that's one of the great characteristics of humans, but also one of the great things about maybe relationships overall, or any form of interpersonal relationship that I really did enjoy. So another moment that, again, just like I love it because it hits too close to home for me is again, the guy gets paired with an annoying girlfriend. From the first like minute they meet, it's clear they're not good for each other, and things don't really improve even as they do a bunch of stuff. But the annoying girlfriend at this same party says thanks when he eats some garlic. Like, he's like, oh, nice, eating some garlic. Thanks for that.
Garlic dip. Thanks for that.
Super passive aggressively, and then, you know, in response to that, the guy just eats some more garlic and makes it like an annoying thing. And I love this as a little scene, you know, partly because it just hits real close to home. It's like, man, yeah, this is how it's gonna work. If you're in a relationship, or if I'm in a relationship, maybe I'm gonna tell you about my secret strategy here. But not only do I have like an instinctive response to like, hey, you want to tell me what to do? I'm gonna do the opposite. Probably not good in a relationship, but if it's a failed relationship, you can see how that might happen. But there's also the other end of things where it's like, yeah, being super passive aggressive, who was that ever going to help? Who's ever going to be like, oh, I didn't realize till just now you didn't like it, you know, maybe in the perfect relationship. But there are so many like better ways that their thing could have gone, and you can kind of just see like the descent that their thing goes into, which again, I feel like anyone who watches this episode who has been through something that has failed is going to be like, yeah, that's too real, right? That's just too real. And I like, I don't know, that one moment in the episode was like, it made me like cringe and also like agree with, and again, that's a good moment in a show when it can actually hit close to home for a lot of people. And when we're talking about this crazy sci-fi concept, having some human moments in there is pretty darn good. But speaking of human moments, something that is very human but was said by the system is that, you know, everything happens for a reason. Non-stop throughout the episode. I didn't count the number of times, but I'm sure it'd be like 8 or 9 times. The system says, everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. And it's really interesting because it's one of the most widely said things, and it's one of the things that I do believe on some level. I feel like most of the people watching this video probably agree with on some level, but also you've got to hate hearing it. When something bad happens, you don't want to hear that everything happens for a reason, because we feel that it might be right. We know that it hopefully is right, and it's a good thing to believe, but it's also a terrible thing to hear because you don't want to hear that everything happens for a reason. You want to hear what the reason was, what the actual benefit will be. You want to know that this wasn't some wasting a thing and throwing it into the void. And yeah, I don't know. I love the fact that one of the most annoying parts of the episode for the characters, maybe even for the viewer, is the fact that they keep saying everything happens for a reason, and you just want to be like, what is the human possible reason to throw yourself through so many 36-hour relationships, etc., etc., you know, very much, you know, counter to how traditionally things are seen. What are the benefits of being stuck in a year-long relationship that you hate from literally moment one? Like, you know, being trapped in a relationship for a year, it's a thing that happens to people. Maybe you've been in a place like that. Maybe you felt trapped before. I certainly have felt, not necessarily trapped, but like, you know, in a place where you're like, ooh, I don't really know how this was going. But the idea that like being in that year-long thing and being literally locked in, the system locks you into it, questioning why that happens, etc. You know, wanting to, you want to hear a reason. You want to hear the exact purpose of your torture, because being tortured for no reason is one of the most terrifying concepts in life, and everything happens for a reason is not a reason. It's just a way to not feel that dread. And yeah, I like that the show kind of takes that on. So on the same kind of note, at one point, the girl of the main duo in the episode mentions that it's all kind of random. There's a really bleak outlook where she's like, you know what, it's kind of funny just how much the system seems to know about us, or claims to know about us rather, and you know, clearly all of these bad relationships, etc., and the seemingly random order they come in, it clearly must be random. It just keeps pairing you together until eventually your resistance is down to the point where you trust the system, and when it says it's your perfect one, you believe it's your perfect one, and that's the real thing. It's a super bleak outlook. And then he says, what if we're just stuck in a simulation? And I love it. I love any episode where they can literally say what the twist is before the twist, and that you can still get away with it being a surprising twist later down the line. Again, foreshadowing is important to have a twist actually have meaning. You know, you can't just wake up and say it was all a dream, because you can't foreshadow that in any way. But I love that it's literally foreshadowed there. And I also love that it's on the same note of like, yeah, what if that is how real life relationships work? What if, you know, like, you know, the concept of love, the concept concept of true love and the one and all these things that people are born with on some level. What if it really just happens that you keep on believing and going until you learn the actual relationship skills that you need? This is kind of how I assume things are. My worldview is that, you know, there isn't someone that is necessarily the one. You can find people who are very good, close to the one, but they've got to be people who want to make it work. They've got to be people who want to make it work. They've got to be people who are willing to try and willing to go through things that are, you know, sometimes difficult for them to make the relationship as an entity work. And yeah, I don't know. I love that kind of is, I guess, my worldview, that like, oh yeah, you just keep trying until you find someone who's willing to try on the same level as you, and you both kind of give up and say, wow, this is basically the same as true love. And what if it is a simulation is also something I like to, if you ever want to have an existential dread, then just wonder, oh yeah, what if all these good things that have happened to me, what if it's a simulation and none of it matters anyway? There's a good way to turn a good situation into a bad one. Pro tip, don't actually do that. But yeah, let's move into the ending, because that's one of my favorite bits too. I mean, we've already ruined the twist, but let's talk about it anyway. Because as it turns out, they decide to, you know, shun all of their other partners. They shun their final person to have one last night together, and they decide, you know, why do we need to trust the system? Why can't we make our own decisions? Why can't we break the system, accept banishment, accept that we'll be sent out to a place where we don't even recognize, we don't even know it exists? They're willing to escape everything they know, together. They're willing to give up everything forever just to live their life together. Again, it's a grand expression of love, right? It's a grand way to say, wow, yeah, we love each other so much, we're willing to give up everything together and the whole lives that are planned by a system that, you know, claims to be right just for the purpose of being together. It's beautiful, it's a big thing, but I love that the the end reveal when they finally do climb out, that like, oh yeah, this was all a simulation, and they realize that everyone else is fake but them. It's kind of a parallel to how love works when you really get down to it. When you love someone so much, when you are on the level of emotional attachment to anyone, maybe even a best friend, I don't know the whole friendship love parallel, if you want to make it, you can try, but the idea that like when you're with someone you really care about, it's just you and them. That's how restaurants even work. I used to not understand why people loved restaurants so much. You pay a lot for food and you're surrounded by other people who are also there. Like, it's not private in the slightest. Most people don't care about that because, you know, when you're with someone, everyone but them zones out. And maybe, I guess, the server comes in separately, but that's a whole separate issue. But yeah, the fact that everyone else is fake but them, for the second it appears, it makes you realize that the whole episode, everyone else has just been a background character. And that's how life is. When you really enjoy someone's company, everyone else becomes a background character to you and them and your stories together. This is why love as a story works. This is why the love parallel works. And that's why, you know, maybe it's not even a metaphor in the episode, but to me it was like, oh yeah, isn't that kind of nice? Also, the other thing about this, because again, I'm fully explaining the twist here. You've watched the episode. If you haven't, you're just listening to a man ramble about an episode he loves. But the other thing is, at the end, they reveal that this has happened 1,000 times. They set up 1,000 simulations of the exact same thing, where you're in a dystopian world and you have to keep being paired with random strangers. And out of all of those 1,000 times, when they got paired together and then unpaired and told they'd be together with someone else, 998 times they rebelled and they decided to do this, which gives them the 99.8% match. And I love that it's a callback to, like, it's 99.8% accurate. Yeah, 99.8% of the time they're gonna go through a lot of effort to make this love work. But I also love the fact that it's being realistic in a way. Like, maybe you know, they just made it such a high number that you're like, that's as good as 1,000 out of 1,000. I love you know, maybe it's a point they didn't even want to raise, but I love the fact that they only escaped 998 times, because I think the fact that even this perfect couple, even this couple that you've seen over the episodes, you've seen them bond, you've seen how much they love each other, and they're willing to go through all of this, they're only willing to go through it 99.8% of the time. Circumstances are a thing. People aren't perfect all of the time, even in love, and in those 2 times, they gave up and they decided to take their exact ones. I mean, the episode doesn't focus on it as a concept, but I love the kind of like niche parallel of like, yeah, even these 2 perfect people, you know, 0.2% of the time, they decided actually, you know, maybe they weren't working for each other. Maybe it wasn't worth going through this effort of being banished from the whole system. And I don't know, it goes back to the thing I was saying about work, right? Where like if you believe in the concept of the one, then it should be 100%. But if you believe that there are just people who are willing to put in the work that you appreciate from them, then yeah, they're going to do it 99.8% of the time, and forgiving them for the 0.2, or willing to go through the 0.2 and willing to give them enough time to eventually go back into the 99.8. Maybe I'm crazy on that one. Maybe this sounds like I'm trying to say, hey, This is why I'm saying right now, the goal to go away from high school, will you marry me? If you're watching this video, it sounds like I'm gonna go with something like that. But no, I just love it as a little thing. And yeah, Hang the DJ. Here's a miniature podcast with me talking about a Black Mirror episode I like. Maybe this was a cool idea, me just talking about things I liked about an episode that are kind of parallel to it. Maybe you think it's the opposite. Maybe you think Toy Cat talks about relationships for 40 minutes is not a good idea. I think the interesting thing about relationships is that your idea of them evolves as you grow older, but the concept of love never does, right? Like, the concept of love is this unchanging concept that, you know, we kind of have a maxed out definition of, but I love that, you know, sci-fi can take that to different levels and explore different parts of it. As to like, do you love someone enough to torture 1,000 different versions of you and 1,000 different versions of them just to see how true your love really is? Is it worth suffering 1,000 lifetimes so that you can have that one lifetime where you spend your love with someone that you really love? And again, you stretch the idea of sci-fi, you stretch the concept of what someone can do, you know, to show their love, and I think that's beautiful. And maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, or maybe you think, what are you doing, Toy Cat? How about you go take a nap and stop watching Black Mirror episodes? But no, I love this episode. I've been watching a few Black Mirror episodes again. I feel like rather than binge watching the whole series again, I'm just watching some of my favorite ones. And again, the whole love thing is interesting because I recently had a breakup thing I was going through. It was, you know, it kind of messes with your definition of like what relationships, love, blah 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 all mean. And I think it's you know, when you're going through a destructive and rebuilding phase, I think it's important to do something to rebuild rather than just say, oh yeah, rebuilding's happening at some point. So yeah, my conception of a lot of things is being rebuilt right now, and I feel like you know, a good TV show can both entertain you and at least give you something to think about while you stand in the shower tomorrow morning. And if this video hasn't given you something to think about, then imagine, what if we had computers, but instead of like transistors, they had bees that buzzed inside there? What if that's how real technology works, you know? Bees are pretty smart. What if the only reason you can watch this video is because there's bees inside of your phone or computer? There's something ridiculous for you to consider. Thank you very much for watching this video, because I'll see you in, I won't see you in another one, whatever. Third channel, don't care. Goodbye.